I've seen a lot of animated discussion about the Feast of Seven Fishes. Is it really Italian? Let's settle this dispute once and for all. To find out, we're going to look at the first Italian cooking book written by Pellegrino Artusi in the 19th century, right after the unification of Italy. At the end of this book, he suggests different menus, so we're going to go and look in December what he recommends for Christmas Eve. Risotto with cockle, crostini with caviar and anchovies, fried sole, squid and red mullet, a salad of watercress, heel or other fish. For those who claim that the Feast of Seven Fishes is not Italian, here's the truth. Italian do have fish on Christmas Eve, but we don't limit it to 7. However, the opposite is also true, because Italy unified in the 19th century, and our cuisine is very regionalized. Mountain inland region may not have this tradition. So what are the rules for planning an Italian menu? And why do we have so many courses? And is there a rule that we can apply to all Italian cuisine, regardless of the region of origin? So I went beyond the 19th century and researched Italian menu through history to find out what key historical theories still influence our modern Italian cuisine. And now you can apply them today, even if you're not Italian. I will show you some simple historic theory that still guide Italian menu today. Flavor combination, menu structure, and how to serve it. Each time I will link above a playlist so you can find some inspiration for recipes. You notice that when Italians talk about food, regardless of the region of origin, we always define something as easy or difficult to digest. It all started with the Galenic theory, established by the ancient physicians Galen, a prevailing medical paradigm that extended well in the 15th century. It was founded on the idea that health needed to maintain a balance of 4 different qualities: hot, cold, warm, and humid, which correspond at the 4 elements of earth, air, fire, and water. This concept didn't apply only to medicine, but also to cooking. And according to this theory, all the food were adjusted to balance those elements. So for example, dry meat has to be boiled, while wet meat has to be roasted. It's very interesting how these rules still apply today. In Italy we say, gallina vecchia fa buon brodo. Old chicken, which normally the meat is tough, makes a good broth. Also, if you look at the fruit like pear and melon, they were considered wet. So they were served with ham and cheese, which were dry. Still today, we serve the juicy main with a dry side dish, or a juicy side dish with a dry main. So one of the main historic principles you can use to plan your menu is to balance warm and cold and dry with humid food. So some of the rules are, for example, not to serve the same meat cooked in 2 different ways. 2 dishes made with the same main ingredients are never served in the same menu. So, for example, gnocchi made with potato are not served if there are roasted potatoes. That's why the popular garlic bread served with pasta is not Italian. We will never serve 2 carbs together. In the 15th century, while the cook was responsible for preparing the meal, the scalco was responsible for structuring the meal. Bartolomeo Sacco, known as Platina, was a humanist Renaissance writer that published the first printed cookbook. Platina dedicated an entire chapter on how the food should be served and what should come first and after, and emphasized the importance of the sequence of a meal. He suggested that starter should stimulate the stomach and provide a light nourishment. Salad dressed with olive oil and vinegar was a big dispute for a long time. Some said to serve it at the beginning, some at the end. Some believe salad was better used throughout the meals to continuously stimulate the appetite. It was eventually settled to be served as a side of roast. The main dish, typically meat, was not subject to much debate and was seen as the most nourished part of the meal. The third course of the meal should be the one that seals the stomach, favoring food with astringent property and usually a warm and dry in nature. Today the menu is structured a little bit differently. In Italy, usually we start with an antipasto, then we pass to the primo piatto or minestra, which is pasta, rice or soup. Then we have a second, the main, served with the side dish, and dessert, fruit or cheese. The antipasto can be either cold or warm, but never served together. And we maintain Platina's principle that should stimulate the stomach, but not fill you up. During the festive season, we often have fried antipasto, so fritto misto, and you can have some ideas on the link above. For primo piatto, we can serve pasta, risotto or soup, and you have to try to combine with whatever main you're serving. You can serve a light vegetable-based pasta or risotto if you're serving fish or white meat. For main, if you're serving a roast, you usually start with a soup or a consommé to keep it light. You choose the main side dish with the Galenic principle, wet or dry, depending on the main. The same applies for the dessert. During lunch, you'll have a warm dessert, usually made of fruit. Or if you want to serve a cold dessert, serve a dessert that is light. For dinner, you can serve a cold dessert like ice cream, gâteau or cake. Now, let's look on how to serve those dishes. In the 16th century, elaborate meals were served at the starters, and they were called sideboard service or cold services. This appetizer, prepared ahead, were intended to engage the guest, giving the chef additional time to prepare the warm meals, which were called the kitchen service. All dishes for each service were presented at the table all at once, giving the guest the freedom of choosing what they want to eat. During the 18th century, this style of service was recognized as the French service. This approach entitled setting all the dishes on the table simultaneously. Guests were welcome at the table after the tray or food were already set. Not all the food was served to everyone. The most lavish dish were placed next to the most important guest, out of reach of the less fortunate. Guests would serve themselves without any particular order, and everybody chose what they wanted to eat. This style resembled very much on our current standing buffet or barbecue, where cold dishes are set on the table while the meat is cooked on the spot. You can find a list of cold dishes you can serve on a buffet table, or a collection on one pot dish you can serve for a potluck or a buffet. With the 19th century, there was a shift on the serving style, and we transitioned from the French serving to the Russian service. While the French-style table service was a display of opulence, an exhibit of wealth and power, the Russian service was characterized by serving one course at a time, each hot and freshly cooked. For a brief period, both services coexisted. Then the Russian service took over. There are clearly some advantages. The dishes are served fresh, at the optimal point of cooking, and with the aromatic perfection. In addition, maintain the same elegance, but avoid food waste. So to conclude, this is how you can structure your Italian dinner party. When you select the dishes for a menu, use the Galenic principle: humid and dry, hot and cold. And to structure the meal, use the Platina principle. Choose a starter to stimulate the stomach and provide a light nourishment. If you have more than one main, serve the lighter first. To close the meal, seal the stomach, favoring food with astringent property and usually of a warm and dry in nature. To serve it, use the French service principle if you have a lot of guests, like a buffet, and use the Russian principle if it's an intimate dinner party. Now that you know how to structure an Italian meal, how to create an Italian ambience? How do you set the table for all those courses? And did you know that if you are a guest in an Italian family, you should never say buon appetito before eating? To find out, subscribe to my YouTube channels and wait for my next video on Italian table setting and etiquette. Or watch my other videos. 3 crucial principles to create an authentic Italian meals, even if you're not Italian. And genius secrets and tricks on how to create an Italian 7-meal courses.